If there's one big generalization that I could make about Pokemon players, it's that we're obsessed with accuracy. It just makes too much sense. You'd rather have a highly accurate move than an inaccurate move because nobody likes to lose a major fight just due to an unlucky miss at the end. It's a sentiment that I see repeated over and over in the comment sections of my videos. Why would you be using Thunder here when you could use Thunderbolt? Why would you be using Mega Kick when you could have used Double Edge? There are plenty of cases where even if there's a kind of downside to the highly accurate move, people would rather use that than be stuck with something where they just might get an unlucky miss at the end of the fight. But this makes me always question, how important is accuracy really? For example, when we have Thunderbolt with 95 base power versus Thunder that's 120 base power, well, it makes perfect sense that you would go with Thunderbolt, given the fact that Thunder is only 70% accurate. But what if you had to choose between Thunder and Thunder Punch? Now, in spite of the 70% accuracy of Thunder, it's so significantly stronger than Thunder Punch that you'd almost certainly get better chances of winning the game by going with the less accurate, more powerful move. So today I want to test out how a Pokemon would do if it tried to beat the entire game using only mid-power, highly accurate moves. We're talking Thunder Punch, Bubble Beam, Double Kick, and Swift. 4 moves that give pretty decent coverage, but will not be overpowered at all in the second half of the game. And given that we've already done runs with 2-turn moves and inaccurate high-power moves, it's going to be very interesting to compare how these mid-strength moves actually stack up. Does the higher accuracy of these weaker moves overcome the inconsistency of stronger but inaccurate moves in terms of time or the number of resets that it takes to complete the run? Or does it turn out that the relatively low power of these moves prevents you from beating the game at any sort of reasonable level? Well, let's get into it and find out. So as we meet Professor Oak outside of Pallet Town, he is going to find the most mid Mew that has ever existed in the game, running only mid-strength, perfectly accurate moves. And as our rival pushes us out of the way, he's actually going to learn that this was an early game mistake, given the fact that he does not have mid-tier moves yet, so I think we're going to make pretty easy work of him. I'm just going to use Bubble Beam since it's the only move I actually programmed any PP in at the start of the game, but it's a simple 3-hit KO in order to knock out his Eevee, and we're ready to move on. But now I hear some people who maybe haven't followed the series so far asking, why would you run this moveset? Why specifically these 4 moves? Well, it's because I want to compare to the last run that I did, where we used high power but low accuracy moves. We're talking Hydro Pump, Thunder, Submission, and Mega Kick. So we are running the same types of moves here, so we have the exact same coverage as we had in that previous run, but our moves are just weaker while having much better accuracy. And the real question is, can we get through at a similar level? Can we get through faster? Can we get through with more resets? Because if we can, we're going to prove in this one that it would be better to use weaker moves that are fully accurate rather than using really strong moves that suffer from inaccuracy. But we could also find the opposite. Maybe it turns out that accurate moves only count for so much and power actually trumps accuracy in the late game. For now, however, we've got enough moves and enough coverage for literally everything in front of us. Thunder Punch is technically our strongest move, but we can see it's a 3-hit KO here on the Caterpie at the end of Viridian Forest. But we have made it to Brock, and I don't expect him to be 3-hit KOs. We've got Bubble Beam. He's basically going up against a guy who's already beaten Misty, and I don't think he's going to stand a chance against somebody who could theoretically beat a second gym leader, since we already have our signature move. But Brocky Boy attempt number 1, we're just going to go Bubble Beam. That is a 1-hit KO on the Geodude. Out comes the Onix. We hit the Bubble Beam after winning a speed tie and knock it out in a single hit. So just like that, 2 minutes 57 seconds, we get through Brock with no resets, no optional battles, and we are cruising at this point in the game. And this is kind of what I expect. I expect here in the early game that we're pretty much just going to crush everything because
our moves are pretty strong for this point in the game and the kinds of Pokemon that we're up against. But this one could really bog down, say around rival number 5 or Erica or Koga, where suddenly we're going to be up against trainers who have much better Pokemon, and we're not going to be able to get good ranges against them with these weaker moves. That's at least my feeling. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if we end up finding that the lower accuracy but higher power moves are actually better than running mid-tier perfectly accurate moves. But that's all just my conjecture at this point in the run. I have not completed the entire thing, so I'm going to be learning right there with the rest of you how this actually works. A few other quick notes: we are running on 0 DVs. This is the weakest possible Mew that you can have, and we are going to run on minimum battles as far as we can. We will only start taking optional battles when it is clear that we cannot progress at our current level. This is actually going to be much easier to assess in this one because we have 100% accurate moves, so if we lose a fight, it's not going to be because of an unlucky miss or a bad range. It's basically going to be because our moves just weren't strong enough to get through the opponent. So we're going to be really liberal about just taking optional battles when we lose a fight, unless we get some sort of like crazy status luck or something, or a Gen 1 miss. Those are the only cases where I will consider a reset in this one. So here as we make it to the Super Nerd at the end of Mount Moon, he's not even a 2-hit KO with our strongest move, Thunder Punch. And now as we move through the team, we're just trying to deal enough damage to get through everything efficiently and hopefully without getting poisoned. We do get a 2-hitter on the final coughing, so we get to level 16, we can pick up Lord Dome. It's time for Jesse and James. So on the Ekans, I'm going to go Thunder Punch first. It's not enough to get a 1-hitter, but Bubblebeam will finish it off after that. Double Kick is the obvious play for Meowth, so it only takes 1 turn to KO that Pokemon. And now back to Thunder Punch on the coughing. It does about half, so 2 hits knocks out that Pokemon. We get through Jesse and James with no real struggles at all. And now in theory, we could go straight to Misty since we have Thunder Punch, but I think it's a better play to go up north to Bill's house, fight the rival 2 fight, and then we can gain a few more levels to make it a little bit more reasonable to get through since we are running mid-tier moves. So our rival is going to show up. He is still running weak early game moves here, so Thunder Punch just destroys his Spearow. We can go Bubble Beam on the Sandshrew. It's an easy 1-hitter. And now we've got Double Kick for the last 2 Pokemon, so Rattata never stood a chance. And same for the Eevee, but it's actually not a 1-turn KO at least. We're going to take 2 turns to knock that Pokemon out. Still never in question. There's basically no way that we're ever going to lose that fight given our moves having good enough coverage. So now let's just make our way up to Billy Boy and just see what he thinks of our moveset in this one. He always likes to give comments about my strategy and basically how bad I am at Pokemon, but in this one, he's got to at least respect the fact that we're fully accurate, I think. And sure enough, we make it through all the trainers here, getting to Billy Boy's house, though we do have a bit of a problem. When we come against grass types like this, our only neutral move is Swift, and I don't see any way that we're 1-hit KOing Pokemon with this move when we're 9 levels higher than these Oddishes and they're still not 1-hit KOs. I accidentally used Thunder Punch, but it wouldn't have made a difference short of a critical hit there. We still would have ended up taking 2 hits to knock out that Oddish. So Billy Boy's gonna kind of laugh at us for the fact that we can't even beat the Oddish Lass in 1-hit KOs here. And he's gonna feel so bad that he's gonna give us the SS ticket so that we can go have a little bit of fun before we actually get to the grind of this one and end up absolutely hating these mid-tier moves. But after completing everything up north, we're just doing the exact same routing as we did in the previous run. It's time to come in and take on Misty. So Misty attempt number 1, she leads off with Staryu. We're just going to go Thunder Punch and get a 1-hit KO right there. Next is Starmie. She goes X Defend. We hit the Thunder Punch. This is going to be a 2-hitter, but fortunately Water Gun does not do enough, so we easily win. It's 11 minutes 19 seconds to get through Misty. Still no optional battles, no resets, no randomness whatsoever. We've had a pretty easy time getting through. If there is any sign of trouble to come, it's just the fact that we don't have super effective moves against grass or psychic types, So Executor in the late game with Swift only could be pretty rough. But for now, that's not an issue. We've simply gotten through. We're ready to move on in this challenge. And with that done, let's just get down to Rival 3 and Surgy Boy and just see if we can manage to keep our clean sweep going at this point, or are we actually going to start to hit a wall? First up, of course, is Rival number 3. I don't even think I need to heal here. I'm still in green health, so I should be fine. Let's just go Thunder Punch on the Spearow, easy KO. Rattata can get a double kick as it just simply goes down. Bubblebeam for the Sandshrew, and finally the Eevee. Let's go back to our double kick. And now that we're 5 levels higher than the Eevee, we easily knock it out in a single turn. So that wasn't bad at all. Rival 3 in Pokemon Yellow especially tends to be actually really weak in minimum battles runs. Rival 3 in Pokemon Red and Blue, on the other hand, where he has a Kadabra, all second stage Pokemon, is actually significantly harder than that fight. But with that done, we can come in here to Lieutenant Surge, and I think we're going to be just fine here, but it kind of depends. If he gets some really big Thunderbolt on us or something, we could actually lose here. So we'll quickly heal after rummaging through the trash, and let's just see if the Trash Man actually gives us some difficulty. Now, Surge clearly watched our last video since he was using Mega Punch and Mega Kick here. I'm going to go for Swift because it's going to be perfectly accurate, but then he uses Growl, so then I think we have to go Bubble Beam because we've already got lowered attack. And we can see this looks like maybe a 5-hit KO. So unless he uses bad moves, we're actually not going to win here. He completely destroys us on the first attempt. So it turns out that these mid-strength moves aren't actually very good, at least here against Lieutenant Surge. We're starting to see the situation where we could actually have trouble in this challenge. So I'm simply going to give up on the Lieutenant Surge fight for now, because if we can't beat him with our perfectly accurate moves, then I'm not sure resetting there is the best strategy. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure eventually he uses Growl or misses enough Mega Punches or something enough times to allow us to win, but it's not going to be very consistent at the least. But instead of taking him on, we only have the Wrapping Glass available if we're staying on minimum battles, and we can see status is kind of an issue, and we're not one-shotting these grass types with Swift, so this could actually be a little bit tough. Fortunately, she's not very smart, so we are able to knock out her Pokemon pretty easily once they actually stop using good moves against us. But at the very least, it's very tedious to get through that. Still, outside of the grass types, I think we're going to do just fine in this section, so let's just make our way straight to the Rock Tunnel Hiker. Now, the Rock Tunnel Hiker represents the midpoint in a minimum battles challenge, but here we have no issues. We know Bubble Beam, which is just going to completely destroy all 3 of his Pokemon, in spite of the fact that it is a mid-strength move, since it's 4 times super effective. So let's just make our way out of here, and I guess we're going to the Rocket Hideout at this point, because I don't think we're going to beat Erica without any decent moves to use against her. Like, if Oddishes here are giving us issues, how are we going to get through her Pokemon? At least at our current level, I just don't see it happening. So we'll just do all the rando side missions that we have to do on minimum battles in order to gain a few extra levels here and hopefully eventually get strong enough to beat Surge and Erica reasonably, but we could end up level grinding a lot sooner than any of our other movesets so far. So instead, it's into the Rocket Hideout here, where I think we're going to have an easy time getting through all of these trainers. So let's just make our way straight to Jesse and James at the end. So Jesse and James, attempt number 1 here. Let's just come straight in and use our strongest move, of course, Thunder Punch on the Coughing. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. We could learn Metronome normally at level 30, but we will not learn that move. We'll keep Metronome for a future run. And here instead, let's just double kick this Meowth down, and then for Ekans, back to Thunder Punch since it is the strongest move we've got, and we easily get through Jesse and James with no issues. And after a quick heal, we can now take on their boss, Giovanni. Let's just see how he actually goes. Bubble Beam for Onyx is a 1-hit KO, of course. Same thing should hold for Rhyhorn, sure enough it does. We get to level 31 as Persian comes out. I used Thunder Punch by mistake. I meant to use Double Kick here, and Double Kick does end it, but that wouldn't have been a 1-hit KO, it doesn't look like, so we would have taken 2 turns to get through there no matter what we did. Still, we get through nice and easy. We're back to Lavender, and we can go and take on rival number 4. We've got enough coverage, I think, to get through everything pretty reasonably, so let's just see how it actually goes. He, of course, leads off with the Fearow. We go Thunder Punch, it is a one-hitter there. Magnemite, we don't have anything good. I'm just going to go for Double Kick, I guess, because, you know, what the heck, why not? Out comes Shelder. We can go back to Thunder Punch and get a one-hitter. The Sandshrew, we can go for the Bubble Beam. Easy victory there. And now Eevee, let's use the Double Kick to get an easy one-turn KO. So our rival is going to run away after telling us about Ghosty Mama. And speaking of Marowak, I just did a Thick Club Marowak over on GSC Pokemon Challenges. And let me tell you, that was a super interesting solo challenge to do. So if you're interested in that, maybe I'll link it down below, but you know, just check it out. Anyway, for now, we have enough moves to get through all of these channelers without any major issues. Like, unless we get crazy bad luck with being confused for a million turns, we should be able to get through these trainers just fine. So it's straight on to Ghosty Mama. And so as we make it to the end in the Ghosty Mama fight, she's gonna wish she had the Thick Club, but we're using Bubble Beam and it's not a one-hit KO. It takes 2 turns to take that Pokemon down. Still, we do get through. We can move on to Jesse and James at the end. Let's see how they go. So Jesse and James lead off with Meowth, of course. We're going to go Double Kick. That's an easy one-turn KO. But now they have their evolved Pokemon in Arbok and Weezing. Thunder Punch does about half to Arbok, so we take it down in 2 turns. Now Weezing. This is going to be a 3-hit KO from the looks of things. Fortunately, we don't get poisoned or take a major sludge or anything, so we're just fine to get through that. We can come talk to Mr. Fuji, but this might be the point where the free victories in this run have basically run out. Like, we can get 1 easy win inside of Erica's gym, 1 easy win inside of the Silphco, and then there are 2 randos that shouldn't be too bad inside of Koga's gym since they are running psychic type Pokemon. But outside of that, we're going to have to start taking on some of the toughest trainers in a solo challenge, so this could get tough quick. Now, there is an argument for going to try Lieutenant Surge again at this point, since we would want to be able to use Fly anyway, and we've gained quite a few levels, so now that we're at a significantly higher level than his Raichu, it might just be possible to get through easily, but we also want to be able to use Fly so that we don't take so long running around the map. So let's try Lieutenant Surge attempt number 2. So this time against his Raichu, we are at a higher level. I'm gonna go Double Kick here just because I can. We get a nice critical hit the first turn. He X speeds and then goes Growl, but it doesn't matter. We take him down nice and easy as we get to level 34, but it took 27 minutes and 25 seconds to get through the 3rd gym. We only have 1 reset, which was on Lieutenant Surge, but still, this isn't looking great. There are Pokemon that can practically be at the Elite 4 in 27 minutes, and instead we had to take an awful lot of time just gradually knocking out opponents because nothing is a one-hit KO. But now with Surge done, I'm honestly not sure what the best routing is. I'm going to start by just taking out all the random trainers here, the guys that are weak that we should be able to get easy wins against before I take on any boss fights, because while it's an inefficient routing, I think it gives us the best possible chance of actually winning a fight without having to sit here and grind a bunch of resets. It's important to note, we're not just comparing these runs on speed, we're also comparing them based on how many resets and optional battles it takes in order to get through the run, because you can disagree with me down in the comments if you want, but in situations where it only takes a couple of resets to get through a fight, that's usually a lot faster than going to grind extra levels. So just because a strategy is less consistent doesn't mean it's necessarily a worse strategy if you're able to get through at a significantly lower level. It's always a trade-off, of course, but I think there are situations like this where we might find that less accuracy or things like wrap, etc. are actually better than using these mid-tier moves. At least up to this point, that is actually kind of turning out to be the case. But here we'll just pick up the items that we need on the cycling road. We'll get into Koga's gym and just fight these last 2 rando trainers that we have available. And then I think I'm going to go back and try Rival 5 first, just because we actually have super effective moves there against a reasonable percentage of his team. He might actually be easier than Erica or Koga in this one. So we're coming into the Rival 5 fight at level 35. So close to his levels, but not as high level as most of his Pokemon here. So this might just not work. We might just find that this is a complete wall. I think Erica is our next attempt just because she has weaker Pokemon overall. Koga might be hard. He uses Leech Life and he likes to use Toxic, etc. So he actually could defeat our Mew pretty easily. So let's try Rival 5 first and see how it goes. He leads off with the Sand Slash, of course. Our best move here is Bubblebeam. We get a critical hit that does get a one-hit KO. That was very nice. 20% chance approximately for that to happen. Now on Cloyster, we can go Thunder Punch. It's a two-hitter, but he uses Withdraw, so that's perfectly fine too. Now against this Magneton, it has higher special than defense, so we need to go for physical attacks. Swift is as good as anything here, but we can see that without a crit, this is like a 6-hit KO, and we took a lot of damage from that Pokemon. Like, wow, all the way down to 30 HP remaining. So now as Kadabra comes out, we get a nice crit to one-shot with Swift there. That was very lucky, but now we have to go Bubble Beam on the Flareon. It does about half, but then he uses Bite, and we survive, and he misses a Fire Spin. So we actually managed to beat him on the first attempt. Are you kidding me? Oh, the rival. Oh, he's clearly setting us up for failure here because it looks like we can get through at this point, but that was close. Like if he doesn't miss the Fire Spin there, or if he just uses good moves 2 turns in a row, he's going to beat us. So yeah, that was rough. We got through, so I'm gonna just take it and move on, but your mileage is gonna vary on that fight a lot. Jesse and James, on the other hand, I expect to have no difficulties with, so we're gonna make our way straight to their boss, Giovanni. So Giovanni attempt number 1, he wants to stunt on us for not using good moves, but I mean, he's using focus energy, so like he's one to talk. We're just going to use Thunder Punch to take down the Nidorino. Against the Persian, it is double kick the whole way. It goes Screech against us, and then Payday, but we knock it out in 2 turns. Rhyhorn should be easy. Bubble Beam just gets an easy one-hit KO, and now the Nidoqueen, the only move is Bubble Beam here. We get a critical hit that does over half, and then he guard specs, so good job, Giovanni. He gives us a free victory on that one. I don't know what Body Slam would have done there. It might have done a lot of damage. We might have actually been in a tough spot, especially if he paralyzed us, but hey, he gives a pretty easy victory overall. It's kind of a standard fight against Giovanni. So now with that done, I actually think we have a pretty good strategy in going to Sabrina now, because there is a kind of exploitative strategy that we can use here since we are running Swift, the most accurate move in the game. It cannot miss. That could allow us to win here. So let's get into this and see if Sabrina is actually a challenge or not. So here against Sabrina, our strategy is actually to get flashed by her as many times as possible, because every time she hits us with flash, it's going to lower our accuracy, but that also gives us a badge boost in our attack. I was trying to use double kick to do less damage, but we still end up knocking out the Abra, so my plan really didn't work. Once we get to Kadabra, it goes Kinesis though, which is perfectly fine. We knock it out in 2 hits from Swift, and now we get to the Alakazam. She goes for the X defend. That's terrible. So I'm going to switch now into Thunder Punch, actually hoping to get paralysis here, because with Reflect plus a X defend on this Pokemon, we're actually in pretty bad shape in that we're not likely to be able to deal very much damage. Short of critical hits, she should just be able to recover all the HP, so we lose this first attempt. Now, the only reason I'm going to reset here is because I got 2 critical hits against that first Abra, and it missed a couple of flashes. I want to see how I do if I get more flashes in this fight, because, I mean, come on, everybody wants to be flashed by Sabrina. And here, without crits, we see we're doing a lot less damage, but we still only get 1 flash from the Abra. Still, we get back to Alakazam. We're hoping for some crits here, I think. We do actually manage to paralyze it this time and then get a critical hit, and then she goes for Reflect, but then she's recovering. We just didn't deal enough damage, but we get the crit a few turns later, so we finally win. It takes 2 attempts to beat Sabrina. So yeah, even trying to cheese that fight, it was not consistent, and it took 38 minutes and 13 seconds to get through that gym. Keeping in mind, we haven't fought Koga or Erica yet, so this time might not look terrible compared to some of the other runs, but remember that we're doing this very much out of order. And now that we've beaten Sabrina, she gives us the single worst gym leader TM in the entire game. I think it's worse than Bide, Psywave, Trust me, we'll come back and see Psywave later on in this series, because I think we have to put ourselves through the pain of trying to get the random rolls every time. But for now, we can simply move on. The next trainer that I think is our best bet to get through is, of course, Erica, just because she's at a lower level than Koga. She's not as fast as Koga, so maybe we have a chance here. I'm honestly not sure though. We might need some crits and definitely some luck with status to get through. So Erica attempt number 1, I'm actually going to just double kick here on the Tangela, given that it's neutrally effective. She uses Constrict a couple times, so we do get through that Pokemon with good HP. Now onto the Weeping Bell. The only play is to go Swift. It does about half. We get put to sleep and then take a Razor Leaf, but we wake right up, so we knock it out in 2 hits. That was actually very lucky. Then she goes Petal Dance with Gloom, but because we're at a significantly higher level, we survive just fine, and we managed to win on the first attempt. 39 minutes, 53 seconds to get through, 2 resets so far, no optional battles needed, and we've completed 5 gyms. I'm actually kind of impressed by this, and we're ready to move on in this challenge. But now we have quite possibly one of the toughest trainers for a Mew in an entire minimum battle solo run, which is Koga. We've seen it already multiple times with other movesets that Koga is the spot where you're just not faster than the Venomoth, and it does too much damage because of the fact that it only wants to use Leech Life here, plus all the accumulated damage up to that point. So this might not work. We're just gonna have to see. So Koga attempt number 1, he leads off with the Venonat. It has lower special, so our best move is to go Thunder Punch. We get hit by Toxic, and this is a 3-hit KO. I think any run where we get Toxic is basically just over at that point, because we're going to take 3 turns on average to knock out these Venonats, and we're not going to have enough HP left at the end to get through the Venomoth. Still, that's only a 1 in 4 chance to get hit by Toxic from that first Venonat, so I'm going to take 1 reset here just to see. This time we actually get through the first Venonat with no damage taken. We actually had to reset 3 times just because he kept using Toxic at the start of the battle, which is highly unlikely. But now we're to the 3rd Venonat on full health. This time we get Toxic from the 3rd Venonat though. It's fairly likely you're going to get Toxic somewhere in this battle because every Pokemon on this team knows it. So now we're going to Venomoth with Toxic on. Now, this Pokemon has higher special, so in theory, we should just use physical moves. I'm going to go for Swift and see what it does. That did 30 damage, meaning that Swift would be a 5-hit KO here, which with Toxic plus Leech Life, there's just simply no way we get through. We could try to Thunder Punch in order to paralyze it, but there's just no way that we're actually going to win this fight at our current level. So with that, we now have to start taking optional battles. Fortunately, there are lots of easy trainers in this section of the game, but basically we're grinding for damage here, so we're going to use damage rounding thresholds to decide how many levels to gain. Damage rounding thresholds have to do with the way that the game rounds off fractions in the damage calculation. Basically, when you have a level that ends in 0, 3, 5, or 8, the rounding results in doing a little bit more damage, whereas other levels simply get rounded down, so they don't result in as much of a damage increase. So I'm just going to take on trainers that I think are relatively easy for us at this point in order to gain the extra levels, while still taking as few battles as I can while I go through this. But it's honestly just a question of at what level we're actually going to be able to get through. Now, as far as rare candies go, I do have rare candies in the bag, but I'm going to save them for the league. This is one where I absolutely expect that we are not going to be able to just go to the league and win. We're going to need those rare candies to have any shot of getting through, especially Agatha and Lance and the champion. I just don't see any way that we're going to get through without gaining some additional levels there. So after beating up on the Dojo Master, we have made it to level 43, and we also humiliated him by taking his Hitmonlee, which is clearly supposed to be the best fighting type Pokemon in this generation. But now it's time to get back into the Koga fight and just see if anything has changed. Do we two-shot the Venonats now? I'm not sure. Let's find out. So first up, we go Thunder Punch on the first Venonat, it misses Toxic. That is a 10% chance. And we are getting through the first couple Pokemon with, again, no damage. We're back to the third Venonat. It goes Sleep Powder this time, and now it's going into Double Edge. So it's doing a lot of damage to us, and we're not waking up. He X attacks, meaning that he's going to do even more damage. So we only have 23 HP remaining as we get to the final Venomoth. We were in a speed tie, but we didn't do nearly enough damage. And without being able to hit a ton of times, we're simply not going to get through this one. Still, I'm going to try just one more time because we are in a speed tie. Maybe with slightly better luck on the Venonats, we can get this one to go. Instead, the next attempt, we get hit by Toxic as we go to the final Venomoth. So let's just see what we do with our Swift. This is still not looking like it's going to do nearly enough damage to get us through this fight without at least a ton of crits. So we have to say that at level 43, that fight is simply not happening. So it's time to grind more levels to try to get through Koga. So back at level 45, we should now outspeed everything on his team. So we've got easy 2-hit KOs here on at least the first couple of Venonats. It's not a range anymore, I don't think, to get through these ones in 2 hits. Still, we get confused and then hit by Toxic, so this one is clearly over. Still, yet again, bad luck to get hit by Supersonic and then hit ourselves in Confusion. That's only like a 1 in 4 chance. So I'm going to reset one time just to see if we get slightly better luck if we can get through. We do manage to get to Venomoth, but with Toxic on, let's just see what the range looks like. We get a nice crit that did nearly half, but still less. So this is going to take at least 3 hits at this point in order to get through with crits. And we yet again just get completely destroyed by Leech Life. So back to the grind. So we come back to Koga after 24 optional battles. We finally made it to level 48. Let's see if we can get through him now. We're probably never reaching a point where we're just one-shotting Venonats short of getting critical hits, but we can get crits 20% of the time. Still, we get Toxic from the third Venonat, but that sends us to the final Venomoth on really good health. Swift here still looks like it's about a 4-hit KO before he uses Leech Life, so we might need a critical hit here. However, at this point, we do just manage to get through with Swift. It took 54 minutes and 25 seconds to get through that fight. Like I said, 24 optional battles up to this point in order to gain enough levels, but it's pretty clear that getting to level 47, 48-ish is what you actually need to get this fight to go, at least with reasonable consistency. Even then, you're kind of banking on not getting Toxic at the start of that fight. So this is starting to look really, really, really bad compared to some of the previous runs that we've done with movesets on a Mew. I would not be surprised if we come out with the result being that these mid-tier moves are actually the worst moveset that we've done so far. And consider, we did wrapping moves and 2 turn moves already, but I actually think these ones might be worse. Still, we haven't made it through Koga, so we're ready to go and take on Blaine. We have a super effective move here, so this should actually be a lot easier. He also doesn't have Smart AI in Pokemon Yellow. He's just going to attack randomly. So as long as we outspeed, I think Bubblebeam is going to be enough to get through this fight. We'll just have to see though. Now, of course, if we knew Tombstoner, it would be a guaranteed victory here. In spite of the fact that it only has a power of 1, it's simply going to one-shot everything. But for now, we're going to have to see if we can just manage to beat Blaine as we are. So Blaney Boy attempt number 1, we're going to go for the Bubblebeam on Ninetales. We get a nice crit there, but it still takes 2 turns to knock that Pokemon out. Rapidash is out next. We are faster. We get stomped though, and we do less than half. It misses a takedown. That was very nice. We get to level 49 as Arcanine comes out. We're faster than this Pokemon as well. Flamethrower does massive damage and burns us though, but then he goes Reflect, giving us the free win. So Blaney Boy does his kind of standard random thing. So we beat him in 58 minutes, 39 seconds with no additional battles needed to get through that one. We are a bit over leveled, but hey, about an hour to get to Giovanni is really not terrible when you're not using ideal movesets, running on 0 DVs, playing with animations on, all of the things that I do that you would not do if you were trying to actually speed run the game, you know. We're actually starting to look a little more consistent here, so maybe things are looking up. Now, Giovanni is also a kind of nice gym for us to have as number 8 since we have super effective effective moves against his entire team. So this should actually be one of the easier fights in the game, at least in terms of type effectiveness. It's more just a question of, are we going to actually be able to deal enough damage even though we have super effective moves, since we're not even one-shotting like a Machop here with our strongest special move. Still, we will not know until we try, so let's get into this fight and just see if we can beat up on Giovanni on the first attempt. So Giovanni, attempt number 1, he leads off with the Doug trio, and he is still faster, but we can use Bubblebeam to deal pretty good damage, and then he guard specs, so he goes down in 2 turns. Now on the Persian, it's also faster than us. We land the double kick and get a crit though, and when you crit double kick, both hits are crits in Gen 1, so it goes down in 1 turn. Now we are to the Nidoqueen. Bubblebeam does less than half. So this is a 3-hit KO, but then he goes for the tail whip. That's perfectly fine by me. Now Nidoking, we can go for the Bubble Beam. We get a nice crit, but it is not a one-hitter. He goes Earthquake, but we knock him out on the next turn. Now it's all about the ride-on. If we one-shot here, we get a guaranteed victory. If we don't, we're hoping for Horn Drill. Here, we get the one-hitter with the Bubble Beam, so we do win on the first attempt. 1 hour, 54 seconds to get through that. We didn't have to take any more optional battles to get through that one either. So hey, we've gotten through 2 gyms on pretty quick succession here, and it's time to go and take on the rival. And then we've got the league in front of us. Now I'm going to do pretty much the same as I've done in other runs in this series. I think Agatha, Lance, and the champion are going to be the major walls, so I'm going to just grind levels against any of these trainers that we struggle against before I use rare candies. I'm going to save the rare candies for Agatha onward when we probably really need them. So here against rival number 6, we're just going to go Bubble Beam on his Sand Slash. This is a 2-hitter and he hits a slash, so that's not great. Execute comes out, we hit Swift. This is a 3-hit KO at this point, even after a crit, and we get poison powdered, so not great. Thunder Punch on Cloyster does not get a one-hitter either. He uses a potion, and that brings us to Magneton, against whom we also don't have any great moves. It has really high defense. Thundershock, while it's not super strong, is still pretty decent, and it takes 3 turns to knock that Pokemon out with a crit. Now Kadabra easily goes down on 1 critical hit though, so we've made it to the final Flareon. Bubble Beam does less than half. He misses a Fire Spin, and then we get a crit. So we once again win a fight that we probably shouldn't have won if he just used the best moves. But hey, we'll take it. We are on to the league, where I think Lorelei is actually going to be a nightmare at the start of this one. I don't expect Thunder Punch to be doing nearly enough, so we're probably going to end up taking a bunch of optional battles here, just grinding against Lorelei until we can actually get through her. But with that being said, we don't have anything great for Lance either, so he's probably going to be even more of a wall, given the fact that Hyper Beam there is going to do massive damage to us. So it's kind of hard to imagine how we're going to get through this one efficiently. Now, I'm going to keep everything as consistent as I can with the other runs that I've done in this series, so you might see something and say like, that's a dumb decision, why are you doing that? Well, it's because I'm trying to keep as many variables the same, so we're going to do things like go to the lighthouse to get the extra rare candy and the PP up, and we are of course going to then deposit all of our Pokemon so that we can just blackout grind against Lorelei over and over and over again. Bruno, I see no way that we ever lose to Bruno, but that's just my personal opinion. Who knows? Maybe this is the first one where he actually gets a victory. I've been playing around in my head with an idea where if I ever do speed-based solo runs, you know, if I ever wanted to be like Scott's Thoughts or somebody, I would change up the meta just a little bit. We would make a rule where you have to legitimately lose to Bruno once in the run. You cannot complete the run until you have lost to Bruno, just to actually make the run super challenging. Because imagine if you're running 4 good moves at the end of the game and you've leveled up a ton in order to be consistent, well then you would never be able to lose to Bruno. So you would always have to stay under leveled because you would have to be in a position to actually have a chance to lose to him. I actually think that that could be the hardest solo challenge that has ever been conceived in the history of Pokemon. I don't know, tell me your opinions down in the comment section down below. Maybe we will do that for a 15k special or something, I don't know. But for now, let's stick with this Mew using its mid-strength moves where we know that that's not even going to be a question. So we're going to just take for granted that we can beat Bruno 100% of the time. Lorelei might be tough, Agatha will be tough, Lance will be tough. The champion will be tough as long as he doesn't keep giving us the luck that he's been giving us up to this point in the run. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know how to predict this one. Go ahead and tell me down below how many more resets or optional battles you think this is going to take. I'm not super confident. Anyway, we're going to just wave goodbye to Zapdos here as we get out of the power plant. It's time to start our grind against the Elite Four. So Lorelei attempt number 1 is up first, and I'm going to go Thunder Punch just to see the damage. We get a nice crit. So this would be a 2-hitter with a crit on Dugong, then it crits a takedown on us, so we took a bunch of damage. Still, we managed to knock that Pokemon out. Cloyster's out next. It's a 2-hitter in spite of the fact that it has lower special. So we do take it down. We get to level 53, but we're on the Slowbro, not feeling great. Thunder Punch here looks like it might be a 2-hitter on this Pokemon. Sure enough, we do get the range. On Jinx, we have nothing better than to go for physical moves. We're going to go for Swift here. Double Kick is neutrally effective too, so it wouldn't really make a difference either way. But this is a 3-hit KO, and we get an Ice Punch, so we're down to 15 HP as we get to Lapras. Thunder Punch is not going to do enough, and we get body slammed down. We're just going to keep the XP though and just keep grinding here against Lorelei until we actually manage to get through. The next attempt, we're actually to Slowbro on full health because we got a crit and we got a takedown miss from the first Dugong. So now at level 54, we come back to Jinx, but we do about half damage with Swift. So we're on full health even going to the final Lapras. And we get paralyzed immediately by Body Slam, but Thunder Punch does look like it's a 3-hit KO, and we actually managed to get through in 2 attempts. So we only had to blackout against Lorelei once there, and we are on to Bruno. So now it's just time to see if we can complete my new solo challenge idea, or are we going to stunt on him as usual? Let's get into it and find out. So Bruno attempt number 1, we're going to go Bubblebeam on the Onix. That's an easy victory. Hitmonchan, we're going to go Thunder Punch since it's the strongest move. It uses a Fire Punch on us, trying to prove that it can punch too, but come on. Goes down in 2 hits. Hitmonlee is also going to be a 2-hitter. He's double teaming now because he knows he's about to lose. We didn't even use Swift there. Come on. Bubblebeam completely destroys the Onix. Out comes the final Machamp. We go Thunder Punch. It actually didn't do nearly as much as I thought. This is going to be a 4-hitter. He's karate chopping, so he did over half damage to us. I guess we've got to give some respect for that. But of course, Bruno never actually stood a chance in this one. But now that we've made it through Bruno, this is the point where I will consider using rare candies. I say consider because if it looks just completely impossible here based on the power of our 2 moves that can actually hit ghosts, we might end up having to give up on this one. But let's get into it and see how Agatha goes. So first attempt against Agatha, we reset once just because I forgot to restore PP, but the reset has been taken off on the overlay. But now here against the Gengar with Thunder Punch, we did not do very much damage. This looks like it might be a 6-hit KO to get through with our current moveset. And keep in mind, she uses super potions. So this could actually be terrible. She actually knocks herself out by using Substitute though. It's something that can happen when she has exactly a quarter of her HP left. But now on the Golbat, I don't want to use Thunder Punch because I want to keep my PP for actual ghosts. Here we managed to paralyze the Haunter and we get a nice crit too. So we knock it out in 3 hits. We're on to Arbok where we're going back to Swift because again, we want to keep our PP. She swaps to Gengar. So we actually get to use some of our damage dealing moves here. We get a nice crit. Then it puts us to sleep with Hypnosis. We wake up. Psychic did decent damage, but we've got 69 HP. This might be the chance that we were looking for because when you got 69 HP, you're guaranteed to win. At least that's what somebody told me. We knock out the Gengar. We get back to Arbok. It goes for Acid on us. And we need to knock this Pokemon out before she manages to KO us. And we actually get the luck. So we beat Agatha on the first attempt, at least the first legit attempt after I recovered PP. That is nuts. Agatha is so incredibly random, but hey, we'll take it. We have made it to Lancey Boy. We barely made it to Lance, but hey, we'll just take it however we can get it from Agatha. Now we really have to think about rare candies though. I don't think at our current level that Thunder Punch is going to one-shot even the Gyarados. That's my prediction going in, but let's see if I'm actually right. I don't run damage calcs, so I don't know. I'm just predicting. So fortunately, we are going to be faster here than the Gyarados. Thunder Punch with a crit does get the one-hit KO, so maybe it works out. But now we have these Dragonairs where we just have to go double kick, I think. It's the only spot in this entire fight where we can use double kick. It's looking like 3 turns to knock this Dragonair out. It uses Slam and Thunderbolt on us, so we're losing quite a bit of health. We get a nice crit this time on the second Dragonair as it goes Bubble Beam. It clearly thinks it's us, but then Hyper Beam gets a crit and does massive damage. Still, we do make it to Aerodactyl, where Thunder Punch is the play, but we get Hyper Beamed down. So those ranges definitely didn't look good. I think we have to start using some rare candies right here. Let's get to level 58, which is the first damage rounding threshold, and just see if that makes any difference on the ranges. So at level 58, Thunder Punch does not one-shot the Gyarados without a crit. I called it, and we get hit by a Dragon Rage. We'll just use Double Kick to knock this Pokemon out at that point, and be happy that he did not use a Hyper Potion. He Hyper Beams us with the first Dragonair after that, but we're going to be able to knock that Pokemon out thanks to a recharge turn. And we're back to the second Dragonair, which also hits Hyper Beam, but we're getting through on better health to Aerodactyl. We really needed to do something stupid like Wing Attack, but then Thunder Punch still does not get a one-hit KO, so we simply lose. So it's pretty clear we need to gain more levels to get through this one. Let's slap on a couple more rare candies to get to level 60. Now at level 60, Thunder Punch does get a one-hitter on the first Gyarados. We can go back to Double Kick on the first Dragonair. We get paralyzed this time by a Thunder Wave. It does miss a Slam, which is nice, but then he also Hyper Potions, which is not nice. So this is looking kind of sus here. The other thing is that he knows Wrap with the second Dragonair, so he can start wrapping us while we're paralyzed. He's also using Ice Beam, so we're definitely not getting through on this one. I'm still going to try one more time just to see if we can get through without getting paralyzed, but it is a 1 in 4 chance from that first Dragonair. And funny enough, Gyarados is still a range at this level. We clearly got a good roll, so we're going to have to gain more levels just to make that first Pokemon consistent. So with that not working, we're going to go up now to level 63 and try this one again. This time we actually get a Gen 1 miss for I think the first time in this run, but we do get through the first Dragonair without paralysis. We take down the second Dragonair still on green health. Back to Aerodactyl, it hits the Hyper Beam, but we survive, and we get to knock it out the next turn, so we've made it to Dragonite. Its stats are fairly close, so I'm just going to go for Thunder Punch since it is significantly stronger. It misses a Blizzard, which is very lucky. It hits the next Blizzard, but if we could just get a crit, we would have won. Still, it's not quite enough. So let's gain 2 more levels to get to level 65. We've still got 2 rare candies in the bag. We're just gradually leveling up though. And this one is a question if we're even going to be able to get through without having to go back through the league again. At this point, we actually were able to outspeed the Aerodactyl. So we hit him with Thunder Punch first, and then he goes for a Hyper Potion. We get to knock him out on the next turn though. So we're back to the Dragonite. We paralyze it. It misses Thunder. It misses Hyper Beam. Now it hits Hyper Beam. We survive, and we manage to knock him out at level 65. Are you kidding me? That was ridiculous. We gained so many levels there just to be able to get through Lance. It still doesn't look consistent by any means. These low power moves are kind of sus, but we have made it to the champion. I think there's no logic in keeping these rare candies. We're just going to slam the last 2 as we go in here. We're level 67. Let's see if we can manage to get a win. So champion attempt number 1. We're going Bubble Beam on the Sand Slash. It's a 2-hitter, but he goes Poison Sting. But then he also has to get the poison. Come on. Still, we knock it out in 2 hits. We're to the Alakazam. We go Swift, which does over half. We survive the Psybeam, and we knock it out the next turn. Out comes Exeggutor. Swift did like nothing there. This looks like it might be a 5-hit KO. He goes Barrage, which is fine. But now he gets the Leech Seed. That's not what we wanted to see. And we're on fairly low health as we go to the Magneton. Here, we still pretty much just have to stick with physical attacks, though, because he has higher special, but then Thunderbolt destroys us. So the only question is, how would we have done here if we didn't get poisoned right at the start of the fight? I'm not sure, but something like Slash probably does even more damage. So this is looking pretty sus right here. This time we get Poison Sting without poison though, so we move on to Alakazam a little bit better. We're still going to be able to knock it out in a couple swifts. It's actually using a bunch of recovers here, and then he full restores. But Psybeam doesn't do that much, so we do get through on green health to the Exeggutor. We get a crit the first turn, but then it Leech Seeds us. It tries to Leech Seed again though, because it's super smart AI, so we actually managed to get through on green health to the Magneton. We're trading Swifts here. This looks like it's about a 4-hit KO on the Magneton. We get a crit right there, then it goes Screech, so we knock it out the next turn. Cloyster's out now. We're gonna go Thunder Punch. We barely miss getting the 1-hit KO and it hits Aurora Beam, but we knock it out the next turn. That brings out the final Flareon. Bubble Beam, and then he finally lands a Fire Spin for the first time that he's tried to Fire Spin us in this entire run. So we go down thanks to Leech Seed and Fire Spin. So I think it's pretty clear to say that we're actually not going to win this fight at this point. I'm going to take one more attempt, and if I don't get it, I'm going to black out and go back to the beginning of the league. But this time we're getting crazy good luck on the Exeggutor, so we get through with no Leech Seed as we get to the Magneton. We get a crit. He goes for the full restore right here. Then Thunderbolt does massive damage. Then he screeches, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Thunder Punch on the Cloyster. We get a critical hit to knock it out. So we've got 69 HP as we go to the Flareon. We go for the Bubble Beam. We do about half. It hits a Flamethrower, and then it goes Quick Attack to knock us out. We would have had that if not for the Quick Attack, I think, but we're just going to have to go back to the beginning of the league. Fortunately, we get through the entire league on the first attempt for every single trainer. It wasn't actually that hard to get here. We still have one Max Elixir in the bag as we get here at level 70. I'm going to save the game and slam on the Max Elixir here to see if I can get through. Otherwise, we're going to reset before we use the Max Elixir so that we can go back and grind the league again. So once again, Bubble Beam on the Sandslash is a 1-hit KO now. Swift is still not going to one-shot against the Alakazam, but it's doing over half. He hits Kinesis on us, which is actually kind of bad because that lowers our accuracy, though it did give us a badge boost, so I guess it's kind of okay. We're still going to stick with Swift here on Magneton anyway, but we get paralyzed this time by a Thunder Wave. We do manage to knock it out, however. We get to Cloyster, though we're going to be slower due to the paralysis, and it goes Clamp, plus the Leech Seed is going to be too much, I think. We get back to Flareon, though. It goes Quick Attack and simply ends us. I'm still going to try one more time to see if we can get through in a run where we do not get the paralysis. This time we do get paralyzed, but we got here on better health, so I'm just going to see how this run goes from here. He goes Ice Beam with Cloyster, but Thunder Punch does get the 1-hit KO there. He hits Fire Spin now with the Flareon though, and Leech Seed plus Fire Spin plus Paralysis is simply too much. So we finally get a run where we get to Cloyster with no paralysis on. Thunder Punch is still a 2-hit KO here without a crit, but we managed to get to the final Flareon with better HP. He hits the Quick Attack and gets the Leech Seed damage, and he does not go down to the next Bubble Beam, and then he Quick Attacks us down. So this is still clearly not working. We're going to have to blackout again. So we're back to the champion again at level 73. Once again, we got through all 4 of the Elite Four members with no resets, no issues. So it's time to just see if we can beat the champion or not. The first 3 Pokemon at this point are basically guaranteed wins. So we're back to Magneton on really good green health, but of course he has to paralyze us. And we're fully paralyzed and getting Thunderbolted, so I think we're losing this attempt. We're gonna have to once again just reset for a run where we don't get paralyzed to see what the range actually looks like. This time, once again, through the Magneton with no paralysis. We're back to Cloyster. Thunder Punch gets the 1-hitter there. And now the Flareon, we go Bubble Beam. It does over half. He hits the Fire Spin, but this time we might finally have him. He Quick Attacks, but it is not enough. We knock him out finally at level 74, but even that took multiple resets to get done. So it takes an hour, 34 minutes, and 47 seconds to complete this run, which is about on par with things like wrapping moves. But then we also had to take an awful lot of optional battles, 27 in order to get through the entire game. We still ended up taking a bunch of resets because we had to test the situation where we don't get paralyzed. That's like the one thing we couldn't get. And so the overall score, well, it is 90.85. Keep in mind, this is a Mew. This is like supposed to be one of the best Pokemon in the game. So it turns out that with mid-tier moves, Mew is kind of mid. Still, as our rival Rival says he never made any mistakes raising his Pokemon, he actually did make a major mistake. He used inaccurate moves at key times that did actually let us get through the Rival 5 and 6 fights way easier than I expected. So the fact that we beat him eventually after grinding, his grandpa's gonna come and chastise him a little bit, but not quite as hard as usual because of the fact that he knows we had to go through the league like 3 times in order to beat his grandson. It's just that slow to walk here from Pallet Town, apparently. Still, we have registered our mid Mew in the Hall of Fame. Now, if you enjoyed this one, we've got tons of movesets coming up, but I'm going to take a little break from this next week to do something a little different. We're going to see how good a Thick Club Marowak would have been in Gen 1, because we already did basically the Light Ball Pikachu with Ash's Pikachu. Why not see how Ghosty Mama would do if she actually got her special item? As mentioned before, I'm getting very close to my long-term goal of being a full-time PokeTuber, so if you'd like to support me in that, consider watching another video I'll link right here, or if you want to get my videos ad-free, consider joining the channel membership. Anyway, that does it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Later.